guys, last math video of the school year. I know, fractions and decimals. Let's go ahead and review this chapter.
So I did my hand read.
Okay, we have fractions and decimals. We want to make sure we understand the correlation between the two of those and understanding that decimals and fractions mean the exact same thing. They are simply a part of a whole. So to understand that, it makes it easier if we first understand decimal place value. Remember, with our whole numbers, we had ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. With our decimals, it's very similar, but you add a little th to the end of it. So we have the first decimal place value is tenths. So let's say here, 0.7, like that there, would be said 7/10. Now if you notice that word tenths, anytime I had a fraction that was over 10, I said that as tenths as well. So 0 and 7/10 would be the same as the fraction 7/10. Okay, so if that first place is your tenths, okay, think about that. You went ones, tens. What came after tens? Hundreds. So that second place is going to be the hundreds place. So you've got tens and hundreds. Now the one thing you need to remember when writing your fraction, or writing it in fractional form, is that you only have to write the word of the last place. So here, tenths was my last place, so there's a 10 down there. Here, hundredths is my last place, so the bottom of my fraction would be hundredths, and 0.32 would be 0 and 32 hundredths, or 32 over 100, which is 32 hundredths. The next concept we want to grasp is being able to take the fraction and turn it into its decimal form. Now remember, this last number here is the key. I have 5/10. Now if you remember, we have 0 and the first place there is the tenths, so that 5 goes in the tenths place. 5 over 10 is 0.5, or just 0 and 5/10. Here we have 48 hundredths. Now remember, the last number wants to go in the bottom number's place. So we have 0 tenths. Okay, the first one was the tenths. The second one is the hundredths. So 48 hundredths is going to be 0.48, or 0 and 48 hundredths. This final one here is where it gets a little bit trickier because I've only got that one number there. So it's very common for people to want to go 0.7 and be done. But 0.7 is 0 and 7/10 because that 7 is in the tenths place. So if I want to make this 7 hundredths, remember, I want to put that number into the hundredths place. So this is the tenths, this is the hundredths. So my 7's going to go there, and then right before that 7, we're just going to fill that in with a 0. So 0.07 would be 7 hundredths. From there, we want to look at comparing and contrasting, and then ordering them. So if I have 0 and 26 hundredths and 0 and 62 hundredths, first off, you could just think about those as the fractions. 26 hundredths or 62 hundredths. And because they are the same denominator, you simply have to decide which of those is bigger, the 26 or the 62. However, if you don't want to convert them to fractions, you just go place by place. If I look at the tenths and I look at the tenths, what's bigger, 2 or 6? 6 is bigger than 2, so the 62 hundredths is greater than the 26 hundredths. And then putting them in order here, I have 0 and 51 hundredths, I have 5/10, and I have 15 hundredths. It's going to be easiest for you if you get them to the same length. You get them out to the same place. Now, I can add a 0 to the end of that, and that would be the same as saying, ooh, that's a horrible 5, just go with it here. That would be the same as saying 5/10 is the same as 50 hundredths. which is true because all I did was multiply those both by 10. 10 over 10 is 1, so 5/10 is 50 hundredths. So I can add the 0 to the end of that, and it means the exact same thing. Now, because they're the same number of digits, I can just compare 51, 50, and 15. 15 is the smallest, 50 is the middle, and 51 is the largest. So if I take that 0 off the end of it again, 15 hundredths is less than 5/10 is less than 51 hundredths. So that's how you would place those in order. Make sure that you think of them as the same number of digits so that 5/10 would be 50 hundredths. You can add as many zeros as you want to the end of something after the decimal place, and it does not change its value. The final thing we want to think about is just adding fractions and then converting that to a decimal form. There's two different ways we can think about this. First off, just keep in mind, 3/10 is 0.3, so 0.3, and 26 hundredths is 0.26. Okay, so if I take the 3/10 and 26 hundredths, remember as a fraction, I can't add those unless my denominator is the same. So 10 times 10 is 100. 3 times 10 would be 30. I can now add 30 hundredths and 26 hundredths, which is going to give me 56 hundredths. And then if you remember converting that to a decimal, the 6 just needs to be in the hundredths place. So the 5 is in the tenths. The 6 is in the hundredths. If you want to think about it as adding them after you've converted it to fractional form, you just need to make sure, as all addition, that your place value lines up. Your ones are with your ones, your tenths are with your tenths, your hundredths are with your hundredths. And remember, I can add a 0 to the end of that and it doesn't change its value. Same as I did right here. As long as I add the 0 to both of them, it didn't change its value. Now I can just add 0 and 6 is 6. 3 and 2 is 5. My decimal point should come straight down, and then 0 and 0 is 0. So either way, I got to that 56 hundredths. Okay, so just understanding decimal place value, and then being able to use that to help you manipulate the numbers to compare them, to order them, and then to be able to turn those fractions into their decimal form. Review it if you have to, give the sheet a shot, and if you've got any questions, please let me know.